Have you ever realized, years after a breakup, that you were awful to the partner at the time, and how did you cope? Realizing now that I sort of gaslighted her a bit when I always felt like I did a decent job of being a boyfriend. Learning from work and friends to shut up, take criticism, and conversation with them on how I can improve or learn from my mistakes. Learning to just shut your freaking mouth is one of the most valuable lessons in life. I realized a year after breaking up with my high school sweetheart, I broke up with him, that I was the main reason that relationship wasn't going anywhere. He always acted like he couldn't get anywhere without me, and that gave me a fat head, making me feel like I was a gift over him and he would do things and change for me because I was already so good to him. Looking back, I realized I never made him feel special or do anything to help build him up or motivate him to get his crap together. We were young and he should, of course, be responsible for himself, but my attitude was never going to help things. I make a point now with my fiance to show my support to him and make him feel special and tell him how attractive he is to me and make my feelings known, instead of just complaining at him when I want change and not making the effort myself and expecting results. Yes, 11 years on and I still get so much anxiety over it. He was the nicest guy you could ever meet and I was a head case who broke his heart and said some horrible things. Years in therapy later, understanding my own demons has made things make sense. It's not an excuse, but I know more of why I acted that way. I keep wanting to contact him and apologize profusely, but I think it would be a bit too crazy. I'm sorry, Daniel. If you knew how many nights I literally lay awake hating myself, you'd know how truly sorry I am. If you're truly apologizing because you want to give them an apology and not because you want forgiveness, then do it. But if you wouldn't be okay with them hearing your apology and not accepting it, then don't bother. It's still about you. If it's really an apology for their benefit, then do it. Even years after leaving my abuser, I would still get some closure from an apology. My ex called me yesterday when he realized he'd been awful during our relationship. It was the most validating call I've ever gotten. I quit drinking. The ex I realized this about actually called me when I came across this post. Things are alright and we are friends. That only happened after I put the bottle down. Keep it up, man. You've done a hard thing and I know people in your life appreciate you. Yes, the relationship was over 2 years ago, but I still haven't been able to date anyone else because the idea of me being like that again is crippling. Same here, but the number of years might be longer. I am sick of being the narcissistic ogre who discounted all of her problems and only wanted to think about me and mine. I am also massively afraid of being like that again because hindsight is strong but present sight is weak. To summarize, username checks out. I'm struggling with this right now. I'm besotted with my current partner and love him more than he'll ever know, but I still get these pangs of guilt whenever I'm reminded of how I behaved during my last relationship. I feel like I should have been a better girlfriend despite the fact that my ex could be a nasty piece of work at the best of times, and I don't have any feelings whatsoever for him now. I have to remind myself that if things had worked out I'd have never met my current boyfriend, and that makes me feel better, but no less guilty. I'm hoping it will go away with time. We only split up a year ago. I try and be a much better girlfriend now. Not years but months. It took me being treated the way I treated him to realize, oh god, I was freaking crazy. I'm coping by trying to be a better person and holding off on starting a relationship until I'm able to be that better person. Same here. I realized I was kind of whiny crap bag at my wife when we were dating. Not sure why she stuck it out, but now I make it a point to be understanding, accommodating, and helpful so I'm a partner she can rely on. Not an awful person, but at the time I thought I was the best of partners. Looked back on it and realized that was certainly not the case. We are still good friends now and I apologized for being rubbish posthumously. Quick note to say hi to everyone searching for their ex in here. 99.99% of you won't be able to write the I freaking told you so Karen response you've already typed out. Instead you can write it here to me if it makes you feel better. Yep, a big part was looking back and thinking on all the mistakes that were solely my fault, realizing what my actions said about me, and seeing almost all of them could have been avoided by just being more present and considerate to my partner. The person I was with had a way of bringing out the worst in me since the beginning. So the biggest lesson I took from it was that you can't change people or what they do. You can only control your response to it. I grew up and am a much better person and partner. Years later, she has kids and everything. I'm married. We got back in touch and I apologized for how I was. Yes, I tried to apologize. Months later, not years, and he basically said that he hoped saying that made me feel better, but he didn't want to ever hear from me again. I learned a really important lesson about the way I treat people and the fact that some things can't be fixed. Yes, and sadly since she cut ties I feel I'd do more harm than good by trying to apologize. All I can do really is improve myself and make sure it does not happen again. Keep it up. I know you can. Me and my ex had problems, but I look back and I'm sickened on how I acted. I became a better person and did a complete 180 on how I am. It doesn't help the fact that she's gone and I know that she was the one. Well, my ex doesn't want to talk to me at all. I think it was entirely my fault. I try to be a good guy and respect women and people in general. Thing is that I didn't know how to handle my insecurities. I didn't communicate and I didn't thrive to improve the relationship. Also, I think I used her to forget about my problems and as a distraction. That's a big no number. Worst thing is that I loved that girl, and as time goes by I am starting to think that maybe I loved what she was, distraction, fun, and not her. BTW, the breakup was about 7 months ago and I don't have the drive or will to maintain a relationship with a few girls I really liked. Shoots a bummer. Worst thing is that I didn't know that I was being crap. That's the worst part. With tremendous guilt and the strong will to never be that person again. Bethany, I'm sorry for who I was, and although we haven't spoken years and I doubt we will ever again, I was the crappy person you did not deserve. Renee, current GF. Because of this I strive to be the great person you seem to think I am. Yeah, ended up going to anger management classes for a little. I'm calmer now. Also not such a C when people tell me things about stuff they enjoy that I don't care about. Now I just listen and ask questions. If they care it means something to them and I shouldn't be a C and put them down for it. That was the biggest thing I took from looking at past relationships. So yeah. I was awful to my ex. I didn't know how to deal with the situation I'd been forced to deal with. I was supporting her entirely through her H addiction. I didn't have any room in the relationship to discuss my own problems, because hers took up all the space in the relationship. I would lash out at her, and it was incredibly tumultuous. We would get into fights all the time about stupid crap, and it wasn't healthy from either side. I was self-medicating with alcohol, and wasn't dealing with my depression, anxiety, or PTSD at all, until it was too late and I did things that I couldn't take back. I got violent with her one night. I've stopped drinking since then, and I have a therapist I go to. As time goes on, I'm starting to realize that I was the villain just as much as she was. I've asked for forgiveness, but that's not really good enough. I had to change my behavior, otherwise it would have been hollow. I'm not speaking to her, and haven't talked to her in roughly 6 months. I need space and time to work on myself. She's presumably doing well though. She's halfway through a nursing program and working a full-time job. These are things she was completely incapable of while we were in a relationship, so I'm incredibly proud of her. Thanks for asking. Yes, I carry that shame, but I read a Maya Angelou quote that helps. I did then what I knew how to do. Now that I know better, I'll do better. Yes, the thought creeps up on me when I'm alone and always makes me feel awful. I wouldn't say I'm coping so much as trying my hardest to prevent it happening again. Yes, but my crappy behavior was in high school, so I shouldn't be surprised. By the time I realized what I did was crappy, I had already grown as a person and matured. I was controlling and emotionally manipulative, but I did not even realize it at the time. Not the worst possible person, but I felt like we had to be in constant contact. I would sulk and guilt her if I didn't get my way on things. During the breakup itself I vouched, not that vague, about her on social media and accused her of betrayal and being heartless. I was just scared and insecure in my first real relationship. She was right to break it off, and looking back she did everything she could to make it as painless as possible. I did not take it well though, and probably made her life a bit miserable for a few months. At the time I just could not understand how they couldn't love me. In hindsight, that might be the stupidest freaking thing I have ever thought. As for coping, I feel like being able to see how I was crappy and knowing that I would not do such things again means I have grown as a person. I am not that person anymore. I also realize I was a kid and I was still learning how to be a functional balanced person. I also realize that it seemed like a much bigger deal to me then than any relationship might today. Not an excuse, but I can understand how that might contribute to my skewed view at the time. It's not that I was particularly toxic, but kinda unreasonable, frightful, paranoid. I always push her away thinking that I was so pathetic, so she will be better without me and she will find another boyfriend easy. In reality, my pushing her away was a very traumatic event for her. Firstly, she really loved me and accepted my shortcoming and my actions create great source of anxiety. Secondly, I understand that she thought that wasn't good enough and something wrong with her. When I understand fully how much pain I was giving her that time, it's only increased my problems with self-esteem and guilt. I was angry at myself, then I was obsessed with guilt and wanting to make things right. Truth is, you can't. It's good to make amends, but damage is already done. And in my case, it was painful for her to even remember me, so my tryings to take responsibility and apologize only make worse. My last attempt was very uncomfortable. She outright said that I was piece of crap and that she hoped that I die. I just accept her anger with heavy heart. How do you cope? Hope and wish to use something that already happened to form wisdom and don't make same mistakes again. Understand, accept, learn from your mistakes. Make vow to never do something again, then live. I post this all the time in hopes that he sees it. When I was like 16 I was dating a really great guy, but I wasn't ready for the level of serious relationship he was trying to give me. So I did the only natural thing and broke up with him in a rap. Zach, I'm so sorry. I honestly think this is the worst thing I've ever done. I am actually going through this a bit right now. I am not necessarily awful, but I certainly need to work on myself before she up and decides she is actually tired of me. So, I am watching what I say, how I say it, and trying to learn how to communicate better. This is good for me regardless of how it interrelates to my wife, but the benefits to her and myself both will be great. I am reading books, trying to gather information on how to do better, and just generally trying to get better at it, hoping we can avoid her just giving up, if nothing else. First, and best advice I can give you, think of how you act before assuming she hears the problem. Yes, but he seems to be doing much better now with his new GF and every time I've tried to initiate a conversation he shuts it down. So I'll let him live his life. I've come to understand exactly what I did in that relationship and I try not to repeat it in future ones. I wasn't awful, I don't think, but after some therapy, I came to understand my part in the failing of past relationships and how I could grow and be better. I cope by understanding that the past is in the past and it can't be changed. Just try to be better. I'm human and don't always succeed, but you have to try and admit mistakes and apologize when you inevitably screw up again. Look for a partner with the ability to do the same. For all of those out there who have realized they were awful, the simple fact that you came to the conclusion is amazing enough. It means you've grown. It means you're self-aware and it means that you can correct the behavior going forward. You shouldn't feel bad because you didn't know at the time. Move forward correcting those mistakes and bettering yourself. Yes, totally. I was that infamous you can't talk to any other boys and have to do what I say guy. I feel so sorry for that poor girl, but luckily she has a nice family now and seems happy. Yes, absolutely. Throughout my teens and early 20s I was an extremely emotionally unstable. I was manipulative, obsessive, and intrusive. I would blow hot and cold, go from extremely clingy to distant and aloof, and I revolved my whole life around my relationships. Outside of my romantic life, my relationships with my parents and family was turbulent at best, and I kept switching careers and changing what I wanted to do with my life. I was a chronic self-harmer and was involuntarily hospitalized more than once. Turns out, I had undiagnosed borderline personality disorder. Once I got treatment and got a bit older with more life experience, I calmed down big time. I managed to build a good relationship with a friend who I'll be marrying soon, but I still have difficulty with forgiving myself for how I treated some of my exes when I was in the thick of mental illness. I was at a crappy point in life at the time I was with them and took it out on them. It took years after to fully figure myself out and what I did wrong and what was wrong with me. I even had a second chance to be with them, but I chose not to take it as I felt I wasn't ready to even attempt a relationship again. Separated over 3 years ago. Been divorced for 2. She left me and I truly didn't understand why. She was unhappy and I was happy, mostly due to my own selfishness. I blamed her for a long time, and while I had some reasons to be angry, she left me in the worst way possible, had an affair and immediately moved in with the guy. I slowly put myself in her shoes and realized that who would want to stay in a relationship where they're miserable? It's taken me over 3 years to fully cope. I went through a pretty awful phase of dating around and just generally being an even worse jackass. Drinking, gambling, random hookups. Fortunately, my daughter kept me relatively grounded and someone came into my life who I absolutely fell for, and she gave me some hard love when I needed it. Also helpful, counseling, learning better coping mechanisms, and admitting that, yes, I can be a selfish butthole and I need to continually work on that. I realized what a terrible person I could be when I was unhappy and decided I needed to work on that instead of finding a new GF. Had a small relationship in college. Didn't know how to handle it. Was my first real romantic involvement. Ended up pushing her away out of stupidity mostly. I think I cared for her, but I was scared at how much she cared about me and I wasn't sure if I was reciprocating or felt the same way, etc. Dealt with it terribly. Grew and figured out more of what I wanted and how I should handle myself. Made sure never to hurt someone else like that again. Happy now. Married with 2 kids, and as far as I can tell she's happy and recently married, etc. I think about it every once in a while, but I consider it a mistake from youth and inexperience and move on. I was extremely emotionally immature throughout most of my life. I became addicted to those little happy moments you share with your partner, and when those moments weren't there I tried too hard to create them. My goal was to make my partner happy because it made me happy, and honestly it drove him nuts. I realized recently that relationships are more like friends who have sex, and that the magic moments fade after a short time, and real love is about forgiveness and acceptance than magical moments and chemical brain releases of dopamine. Last relationship we were equally as toxic to each other, but going into my next one I'm much more aware of what I did wrong and have 100% learned from my mistakes. Yes, made me realize my treatment was a result for my lack of romantic feelings towards him. Not excusing myself, just understanding. Next relationship you have, just keep all of it in mind and don't do it to the next person. This is how you grow as an individual. The fact you realize the things you did wrong is half the battle. The other half is changing those things for the better. I've realized that every relationship has improved me whether or not I was the right or wrong party. It could just be growing up, but the mistakes that were made in a relationship, even if minor, can help you see faults in yourself or how you deal with relationships. Being awful, as you put it, doesn't doom you, grow from it. I've been on the receiving end of this multiple times. They break up and say horrible crap to destroy me. Then a few months later I'll get calls and texts asking for me not to hate them or think they are a bad person and how I taught them how to be treated and whatnot. What it comes down to is that people that treat their partners crappy are crappy selfish people, and when they try to ask for forgiveness, it's not for you, it's for their own selfish needs. My current ex just sent me a big text apologizing for how she treated me a couple days ago. I've been on the fence about responding or not because I feel like she's at another low point and is looking for validation. I appreciate her apology, but I don't feel the need to answer. I was really depressed and did absolutely nothing all the time, and my girlfriend told me that she wasn't happy, so I thought about it for a day or two and broke up with her, because if I couldn't make myself happy, how the heck was I going to make her happy? About 8 months later I took her to dinner and it was the happiest I had been in 2 years. I told her my reason and she understood, but obviously thought I was an idiot. I was. And now we are back together and I can't wait to ask her to be my wife when we are out of college. By completely breaking down who I was as a person and becoming depressed as frick for 2 years until I eventually regained my happiness and sanity. Yep. Messaged her to apologize. She responded with a scathing, vicious lambasting that assumed I was only reaching out to try and get back in her pants and insulted pretty much every aspect of my character. And being completely honest, it was totally deserved. Yes, I did. It took about 6 or 7 years for me to finally accept my fault. During this time I did not date. By no means was I an incel or ever go down that path. Women weren't bad, just her. In my mind she was the terrible person and her cheating was the one thread of truth that I built my safe space around. The truth is she was a fantastic person when we met. I was always terrible. She saw something she thought was special and tried to love me. I ground her down emotionally and verbally. I was never physical, but to be honest, that may have been less damaging over the long term. I was her first love. We lived together. That's when things got real bad. We lasted about 2 years before she met someone else. Looking back at things over the years with the emotions removed, I have realized that she didn't cheat on me. The relationship was over and I just didn't know it. This took about 6 or so years to realize. After this epiphany I spent about a year really doing some self-reflecting and working to be a better version of myself. Changed jobs and started to actually date. I wasn't looking for the one. I was just getting back out there to learn what I did and did not like in a potential partner. Then I met my wife out of the blue. Upon meeting her, 7 or 8 years have passed since the bad relationship ended. By this time I have grown as a person and am someone worthy of a relationship. I do very much regret the person I was when in my early 20s. With that said, those moments have helped to define who I am today. It took time and effort to become a better person. I like to think I am on the way to becoming my best self. I was practically my ex's mom for most of our relationship. I funded his life, fed him, made sure he had everything he needed. He was awful for putting me in that position, and I was awful for allowing it to happen, continue to happen. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.